Hey guys, how's it going? And happy Friday. I hope y'all are doing good. As you can see in the title, we have quite a bit to discuss tonight. Will the Hearing Protection Act actually pass? With that, the Short Act as well. And if so, will it ban suppressors from some states? Maybe, maybe not. We're going to talk about that tonight, as well as rare breed triggers. Dude, have you guys heard about all this stuff? It's kind of like, I'll just say it's kind of bewildering. They had this settlement with the government. Then all of a sudden they're suing people kind of like crazy. And then we have a bunch of attorney generals, including the Attorney General of Michigan, Dana Nessel, are now going after them. So there's like just this huge circle of litigation and a whole bunch of stuff with rare breed triggers that a lot of you might be interested in, as well as the Michigan NICS checks. In other words, the NICS bypass with the CPL. We're going to talk about that as well. And I have a really cool guest on that I'd like to welcome back to the channel. We're going to bring him up here in 1 second. His name's Steven Stambolia. I just like calling him Stambo because his last name's hard to spell, and that's a really cool nickname. He has the 2A Law channel on YouTube. There's a link right there down in the description. I really look forward to all of his videos, so I suggest all of you subscribe. But before we get into this, I want to thank all of you for the many ways you help support the channel. Thank you to all my YouTube channel members who I see in the live chat right now. I appreciate all of you. And A. Steinman just became a member right before this stream started, so thank you to you. And all of you have been here. Make sure you check out my community posts for bonus content. And I also want to thank any of you who may leave a super chat tonight, which we will read those. That's a good way for you to get your comments asked and answered, or if you just want to help be a sponsor of the channel, it's a great way to do it. And I'm not doing any ad reads. You guys are my sponsors. Also, thank you to all my Patreon supporters, as well as local supporters. That's a different site, censorship free, where we do bonus live streams pretty much every week. And I posted some deals that a lot of you are really going to like there. So make sure you go check out my feed because they probably won't last long, as well as 2A Edu on X, where there's a bunch of other bonus content. So with that said, also Cash App is down there in the description. That's a way you can tip the channel. They take very little fees, and I'll pull that up and thank anyone who happens to leave one of those tonight. So with that said, here's my friend and my Second Amendment attorney friend, Steven. How's it going, man?
What's up, man? It's just the end of a Friday.
I hear you.
Yep.
Man, it's been like a crazy week, and we haven't even had these No Kings mostly peaceful protests, riots.
I don't even know what to say about it. I've heard from a couple of people saying, stay in this weekend. I'm like, I'm not staying in this weekend. This is like, no, I'm not staying in.
I know I have grass to cut, and some of my accounts are in this small little town called Howell, Michigan.
Yeah.
50 cities just in Michigan alone that are on the list. So I guess stay safe, everybody, and do what you do, but, you know, keep your head on a swivel, right?
I don't understand, like, in America, how these people can go out and peacefully protest, block traffic, loot stores, and our government's just like, yeah, it's okay. It's the Summer of Love Part 2 or whatever it is, and everything's fine. And we, the law-abiding taxpayers, have to, like, stay inside. What is this, like, COVID, 2 weeks to slow the spread? I don't know.
Yeah.
It just really pisses me off.
No, it's insane, and I want to get all of your opinions on it, and maybe we can pick up on the old No Kings. I think that's what they're calling it. Sponsored by one of the Walton family, the Walmart family heiresses herself, from what I understand. So we'll see what happens. So with Second Amendment, and look, that's not really a Second Amendment topic, but I did want to lead to that because most of us know that when seconds matter, police are usually only minutes away. And that's why we know we're our own first responders, and that's why we carry a gun.
Yep.
So I want all of you to be very safe out there, be level-headed, make sure you're physically prepared with the tools you need to defend yourself. But I like this old adage too, you win every fight that you don't get in. So if you go out looking for trouble, you might just find it, and be prepared for that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, look at Kyle Rittenhouse. I know they're like, oh, he was a minor crosses state lines with a gun, going to clean up graffiti and stuff, but
yeah,
he didn't expect to actually have to use his gun.
I know. And I actually met Kyle and got to spend a good bit of time talking to him. I was a guest speaker that opened up for him at a Second Amendment rally in Michigan. So we spent like an hour or so together in the green room, and I got to talk to him, and he was a really nice young man and just like a regular old dude that found himself in a whirlwind.
And a hell of a shot.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, make sure you guys are being peaceful while the rest are being mostly peaceful.
Mostly.
So the big topic right now for the Second Amendment, like this is literally the first chance of repealing something off the National Firearms Act in about 100 years, is the Hearing Protection Act that is bundled in with this budget reconciliation bill, right?
It is a huge thing for gun owners. I don't know if it's going to pass. I hope it passes. I mean, I was shooting with one of my buddies today, Rob, and I was telling him, I'm like, man, as soon as this thing passes and I can get suppressors over the counter, I'm going to buy dedicated cans for each one of my guns. I've got a little 22 MP5 that I was shooting today just because it's fun and it's cheap.
Yeah.
But I was shooting my 9mm can on it, and it is like 22 is super dirty. So I'd like to buy some 22 cans, like dedicated cans for that. And just basically like whatever I want, right? Because the reason that I don't buy them now, I hate going through the ATF for stuff. I hate having to pay $200. And, granted, $200 is not that much money, but it's just an extra $200 on top of the expense of a can and doing a trust and getting photographed and fingerprinted. So it's like just extra infringements, and I don't want them. I don't need them. I already don't want to do the background check on the 4473 on a can. It'd have to feel like I have to get permission from my government to exercise my rights, but I'll do it because I want the stuff, right? I want a gun. I want new guns. I want more suppressors. And so I'll go through with it. I'll do it begrudgingly. But the NFA is just above and beyond, and it's dumb, and it doesn't do anything, and it's 25, and we don't need to do all this crap.
No, I agree, man. I was talking about this, I think, in my last live stream, at least in the last 2 weeks. Dude, I'm like morally conflicted about the whole topic, and I'll admit right off the bat, maybe even somewhat hypocritical, but here's been my deal. Like, I don't own any NFA items at all, and I have all kinds of like really cool milsurps that should be short-barreled rifles, but instead the stock is pinned and welded into place and permanently attached, muzzle extension devices as workarounds and things.
Yeah.
And of course, I'd love to shoot quietly to save my own hearing and friends and neighbors, but there's just something about it, man. It's just like, just the thought of like, to go vote, people would literally go nuts if there was a poll tax. If you literally even had to put 1 penny into a little machine before like the voting booth would open for you per se, right? People would lose their mind, but this is literally the same thing. So it's like, I refuse to buy a tax stamp because I am not going to pay them $200 to exercise a natural God-given right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. And, I've weighed the pros and cons of that, and I'd like to shoot quietly. And I'm not proud of having paid the $200 tax stamp, but I like my suppressors.
And that's the thing, too. I hope nobody in this chat or anybody watching later on, shout out to the replay crew, by the way, all of you who will watch throughout the weekend. But it's like, and trust me, man, this is where I'm a little bit hypocritical because I'm not condemning you or anyone in the chat that has paid the tax stamp either. It's like my head just spins because, look, I pay taxes for my business. I mean, even though I do it for fun and struggle to break even, they consider this YouTube channel a business, my landscaping business. So I pay taxes there. I purchased a Michigan CPL, which is completely unconstitutional. So when I say like that's my line in the sand and I won't buy a tax stamp, I'm not preaching from a higher ground because I've also paid money to exercise my natural right. But the whole thing just makes me sick. And it's like, I've actually had a lot of grief and thought about this whole topic over the years,
Yeah, I mean, it's a crappy position to be in. It's like, I want these extra things. I want these extra rights, but now I have to pay for them too. And luckily I'm able to afford to pay for them. But yeah, it still irritates me. But, when they changed the trust rules back in 2017, I think it was, that was the last time I bought a can because, we went around the NFA the sheriff sign off where I used to live in Mississippi. Our sheriffs would not sign off on our forms, and so we couldn't get them. We couldn't get them.
Yeah.
So we started doing trusts, and then when they changed the rules to say, well, you don't need sheriff sign off anymore, but everyone on the trust has to be fingerprinted, photographed, and background check, all that other crap. I just quit doing it. I mean, I don't want to. My wife's on my trust. I'm not going to go make her get photographed and fingerprinted for this nonsense.
Yeah, it's intrusive. You have to give up your most intimate details, put yourself on a registration, notify them, and maybe not for the silencers, but for the short barrel rifles and shotguns and machine guns, you have to notify them if you're going to cross state lines. And
yes, sir.
It's like you're literally getting added to the list. This is like the epitome of being on the list, right?
Yeah, the government just wants to know everywhere you're going with something that you bought legally that you've never used in a crime, that, you know, law-abiding person because you had a background check and pay the tax on it. And they track us more than they track the criminals.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah. It's like every time there's some tragedy that happens at a school. And trust me, they're demonizing silencers, suppressors, saying these are for bad guys. It always comes out later that this person had been reported many times by classmates, family members, whatever. The FBI had known about it. Maybe they'd even interviewed him 2 or 3 times. And somehow none of that worked. And they were still free to be among us and did evil things, right? My
favorite thing to hear the cop say is, he was on our radar. He was on law enforcement's radar. I'm like, what? Why didn't you stop him?
Dude, like if I'm going 5 miles an hour over and they hit me with that type of radar, I'm getting pulled over and getting the ticket no matter what.
Yeah.
But this type of radar, they always just they're on the radar, but they slip below it, right?
Yeah. Every time.
Which goes back to this. All gun control laws, especially the NFA, but every bit of it, it only affects the law abiding, right?
Yeah, 100%. All the time. I mean, the people that are going to go out there and commit murder are not going to be dissuaded from committing murder by having an extra background check because they're going to go steal their gun from someone that had the extra background check.
Isn't that ironic?
Or they're going to go steal a suppressor. If we have suppressor crime, I mean, there's been like one registered suppressor that was used in a crime. That was the Chris Dormer guy from California, who was a former cop or former Army or former law enforcement, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of crime committed by like people like you and me.
No, but it has to do with like that, you know, that old movie, the Glock 7, the porcelain Glock. Yeah. So they
cost more than you make in 2 months.
Yeah. So they had to pass the untraced or undetectable firearms law. And then like Al Capone et al. were out there, you know, having these massacres in the streets, and Bonnie and Clyde, and they just like Hollywood personifies it. And we like know that we're watching movies, and people that live in rough parts of town know there is stuff that goes on in the inner cities, obviously. But then like these politicians actually take these movies seriously. Yeah. And then they like ban large swaths of firearms like in real life, you know?
Yeah. These idiots, these absolute idiots live their life through movies. Like the Inconvenient Truth from Al Gore stuff, you know, they take this climate change, gun violence, whatever as gospel, and then they start writing laws based on what they saw in the movie.
I know. And that literally did happen with that porcelain Glock. You can't even make this stuff up. They're like, oh, wait. There's a porcelain Glock in a movie. Now there has to be so much metal in a firearm to get it to go through an airport or whatever.
Yeah, I know. They're dumb. These are the people that rule over us. You know that, golly, Tucker Carlson did an interview. It's probably 20 or 30 years ago. It might even be longer than that, where he was interviewing Carolyn McCarthy. And she was one of the people that helped write the assault weapons ban. And he's like, what's a barrel shroud? And she goes, oh, it's that shoulder thing that goes up. Dude, they have absolutely no idea what laws they're writing. They have people like Everytown or Giffords write these laws for them, and they don't even often know what the hell they're doing. And then they just pass the law, like the Illinois assault weapon ban, PICA, whatever it's called, Protect Illinois Community Act, where they ban all of these different firearms, and then all of these different they ban all of these features that the firearms have. And it's like, goodness gracious, you just banned everything. But actual guns that are used in the military. I mean, there's all kinds of guns that are actually used in the military that aren't banned, but they don't look scary because they don't have the feature set that makes the gun scary. Like my old SKS had, it was a Yugo SKS that I bought freaking long time ago. It had a grenade launcher. Now,
Yeah.
if you hear someone say my gun has a grenade launcher, you might be thinking of like what, an M203? No, these are like a little flip up sight that you could do and a little attachment on the front of it to where you could hook up a rifle propelled grenade to it.
Well, but that's a very early milled Yugo AK that's I can't touch but is behind me.
Yeah.
And if we can see the upper part of it, it has that same exact.
Yeah, but it's not
same one.
It's not really a grenade launcher. Like when I think of grenade launcher, I think M203. I know that's probably not the right terminology, but whatever. I'm not a military guy. I just like things that go boom. That's the kind of stuff I'm thinking about, like 40 millimeter destructive devices. Not not a little spring clip on the front of an SKS with a little grenade launcher sight. But that's the kind of features they ban because in their minds, that's what they really think. It launches grenades. Not, and they don't even think of the next step. It's like, well, how do you get the grenades? Okay, each one of those is a registered like Forum 1 grenade with the ATF that's going to be registered as a destructive device that you, again, pay the $200 tax on through the NFA, and then you blow it up.
Yeah.
And you can actually make a Forum 1 grenade. I have a buddy that made a Forum 1 grenade, a 2-part grenade.
But
got it approved.
But hold on a minute, though. Since they passed all that in Chicago, or in Illinois, rather, that would mean Chicago must be crime-free now. And I'm sure no criminals are making their own improvised explosives anymore because they passed the law.
Yeah, it has been crime-free from, let me think, from never.
Yeah, you could just walk right through Chicago like it's nothing and throw up gang signs and you'll be fine. I mean, supposedly, right?
That's what they say. Now that's a place that I won't go. How about that?
No, I haven't been there in many years, and it's gotten worse since I've been there last.
Yeah.
What's up, Denny's plant-based journey? I haven't seen you in a while. I hope you're okay, man. I hope everything's good with you and your family, and thanks for being a longtime supporter. So with all this nonsense, man, because that's what the NFA always has been. This is a tyrannical government. Now we have the best chance, and I keep on wanting to word it that way, to repeal a section of the NFA in 100 years. But I don't think it's a slam dunk. And I could get into the reasons why, but that's just my initial vibe. Where are you at with this right now?
I am very, very hopeful. And I know that sounds dumb, but I am. Because I was born in 1978. Since 78, we haven't had any congressman, any politician that's really been interested in giving anything to gun owners except the short shrift. I'm trying to be polite here, right?
Yeah.
But here, you see something that we want as a community, and it's something that could pass. And so I remain hopeful that the powers that be will give it to us. Again, I feel stupid even saying that they'll give it to us. Like I'm sitting up here begging for my rights back, but I'm hopeful that it'll happen.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I just reject the whole premise of all of this because in a country that says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Right.
It's the second time the Constitution was amended, right? And then it says in the Constitution in and of itself that it's the supreme law of the land.
That's what it says.
Then Marbury v. Madison, right after the founding of the country, says all laws that are repugnant to the Constitution are void, right?
That's what they say.
Now, I think I just made a winning Supreme Court argument. Now, I know in real life, no, but what more should you even have to say?
Oh man, it seems like you'd have to say a whole lot more because the Supreme Court does not seem that they want to act on any Second Amendment case right now. I mean, we saw Justice Kavanaugh's concurrence in the Snope case where he's like, well, in 1 or 2 more terms, we'll have to think about that. And, we should take one of these cases, but not now. Well, if not now, then when? And not 1 or 2 terms doesn't tell me anything other than we have to wait 1 or 2 more years. And we've got the votes now. I think, I hope we have the votes now. I mean, we have a fairly conservative court, but they're more interested in the terrorists, the illegal aliens, and instead of the citizens. I feel like we're being left out in the cold versus being put at the front. Like, again, they say America first, but America first for the terrorists, for the illegals, for everybody else, but the actual Americans. So I'm sorry, I'm really irritated about this, where I see all of these opinions get issued immediately. Like, the complaint was just filed to some idiot court in California did something, and then the Supreme Court seems like the next day to get it and issue something. And it boggles my mind. Like, do you remember that case in Texas where the judge didn't rule on it fast enough, and the Supreme Court said, we don't think this court only had it for 42 minutes. This court actually had it for 14 hours and 28 minutes, and it should have issued a. What the hell are you talking about? That's not how court works. This is not an episode of Boston Legal. I know in Boston Legal, you can have a complaint filed at the beginning of an episode and a resolution at the end of the episode, but that's not how litigation works. We litigated Young v. Hawaii from 2012, I think, to 2022 or 23. I don't even remember. It's a long time, like 10 years plus.
And that didn't even make it to SCOTUS because they mooted the case ultimately.
No,
right?
that was a different case. Young went up to SCOTUS, and we were held pending Bruin. So we got a GVR, a grant vacated and remanded Young back to the Ninth Circuit.
Yes.
And then those idiots bounced it back to the district court. And these things just take forever.
They're playing like pinball machine with the Second Amendment, and Kavanaugh wants to just let everything kind of brew in the court of public opinion for a few more years. And this is what they call, like, these aren't even NFA items. These are like semi-automatic rifles like the AR-15. And that seems like that's too rich for Kavanaugh and other so-called conservative justices. So here's how I look at this. When I think about everything you just said there, I'm just going to be blunt, guys. It seems like my country just like hates me and hates just like regular people like me and you. When they'll expedite some gangbanger thug that's doing human trafficking and all these despicable, crazy things, they get like their due process within minutes or hours, all the way up to SCOTUS recently. And then we're still sitting there 95 years later dealing with the National Firearms Act and afraid the ATF's going to come and like shoot our dog if we got a good deal on oil filters and we bought like a bunch of them just to save money for our pickup truck.
Yeah, or God forbid you sell a gun to someone and the ATF thinks you're engaged in the freaking business, and then they'll come and shoot you in the head.
Well, you know what? I'd like to have Brian Malinowski come and talk about that, but we can't because he's dead.
Yeah, he's dead.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was talking to someone, and I don't know, it might have been you. Forgive me if it was you, but I want to start a case. This might be a little provocative, and I mean it to be a little provocative, where we have a Trende Aragua or MS-13 member that wants to buy an AR-15, and the court and the states won't let him, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't believe that illegals and gangbangers have Second Amendment rights. Like, I don't think illegals have Second Amendment rights. But let's just assume that they did, and that we could get a court in California or DC or Maryland who loves them some illegals and some gangbangers. Let's just say they could get a gun. And then we could take that case to the Supreme Court, and then we could get some relief. Because it would be a gang member, a terrorist, someone who's designated terrorist organization. And then the court would be like, oh, this poor illegal didn't get his due process. He didn't get his due process. He needs his gun. I don't know. That's stupid. I know, but that's how I feel.
Well, it would. I understand where you're heading with that. It'd force them into a corner and be like, which level of hypocrisy do you want to push forward further, right? But you know what I think would actually happen? And you'd think, no, guys, but like just the way things have been working, I think they'd somehow say, okay, only foreign invaders and illegals have the right to the AR-15, but Americans don't. They would spin it somehow.
I would quit at that point because I promise you're probably right. You're probably right. Like, only criminal terrorist aliens can have guns.
Yeah.
And the good guns, like, they're going to give us our muskets and our flintlocks, but they're going to get, AR-15 machine guns. How about that? M4s.
Oh yeah. With the 203 grenade launcher with live grenades.
Yeah. Yeah. And they'll get to deduct it off the taxes they don't pay.
Oh yeah. No. Look, I'm far beyond being politically correct with these people. These are foreign invaders. Just the fact that they're even here is against the law. And look, I think the right to keep and bear arms is a natural right, and I think it actually supersedes all governments. It supersedes the United States government, and I believe Thomas Jefferson was very eloquent the way he wrote it and said, "All men are created equal, and they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights." And he also says these are the laws of nature and of nature's God. But I believe that yes, everyone in the world has the right to protect themselves. It's a natural right. But here's the problem: these foreign invaders don't have the right to be here. So they have
Yeah.
the right to protect themselves in their country, and that's a fight they're going to have to take with their own government.
Yeah. No, I agree. So one of the things that we've spoken about, not with you, but with other people, it's if we go with the logic of invaders have Second Amendment rights here, if the CCP were to land on the shores, that means and they were armed, of course, we would not be able to disarm them as invaders because they would have a quote Second Amendment right. I don't buy into that. You might be able to have a gun in your own country. I mean, I think everyone has a right to self-defense, even if you're an illegal here. If someone was coming to do you harm, like rob you or murder you or something, you have a right to defend yourself, obviously, but you don't have a right to have a gun to defend yourself. I mean, if there was one sitting in front of you, could you pick it up and use it to shoot someone? Sure. But you don't have a right to walk around with a gun. That's reserved, as the Supreme Court said in the Verdugo or Dequest case, it's a foreign name. The citizenry, like the people, right, is a term of art. It's not just all people. It's a term of art. Like when we talk about, like in the was it Fourth Amendment or Fifth Amendment, where we talk about persons versus the people, it's different. So you can't say, well, the people mean all persons, because it doesn't. Because if in other amendments, when they talk about persons, that obviously doesn't mean the people. That means anyone. Versus what the Second Amendment says are the people. And the Supreme Court
The
in that
people.
in that Verdugo case talks about how the people mean the people of the national community with ties to that community, not just you walk across the border, and you don't all of a sudden have ties and you're not involved in the country. I mean,
Essentially like a white male landowner back in,
well,
in
that
1776.
yeah, if we're going to go the historical tradition, which is what Bruin requires us to do, and there's even a court case that talk about what the Second Amendment was actually meant to apply for. It's white male landed gentry. That's the words that court used. And he goes, obviously, right, this can't be the case still, because all of the racist laws are now unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Blacks, Native Americans are citizens. You can't say that historically, going back to the founding, we look at only white male landed gentry.
Right.
I mean, that's I've said this before, and of course I like to be provocative. I don't know if that would apply to me as half Arab, Greek, and half whatever my mom is, Swiss. I guess.
Yeah, you look white to me. You can.
Yeah, I guess the white won out in me, but it's just one of those things. Like, we apply the Constitution today, looking back on history, but obviously we discard some of the history that doesn't fit with today. But
no, I know. That's why I called that out. It's very interesting. And by the way, guys, I was joking with Steven on the phone, and make sure you guys subscribe to his channel, by the way. This is like totally unofficial because he's not licensed for this, but I literally have to call him every once in a while for counseling, because this stuff is so insane that, like, you literally could go nuts if you try to figure it out. So I'll call him once in a while and he'll confirm that, yeah, dude, it is that crazy. But I was like, all right, dude, I'll stop bothering you so you don't send like the Mujahideen after me or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's right. The Greek Arab Mujahideen, jihadists, whatever.
Or whatever it is. I don't even know what goes on in Egypt. I'm just doing the whole stereotypical whatever.
But yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, do what you got to do. I should try to sell you something. That's what they do in Egypt.
Yeah, actually, I'm a big fan. Actually, I have an Egyptian Hakim rifle, a Rashid, a couple AKM parts kit builds. So I'm actually a big fan. Believe it or not.
Nice.
From the Mahdi factory.
Nice.
So
I have a story I'll have to tell you about that off the air.
Okay, I'm interested.
Yeah.
So no, but back to button up the whole thing with how these criminal invaders, we're fighting, guys, for the Hearing Protection Act, and this is the fight we need to win. But it drives me nuts we're even here, because back to the Declaration of Independence, it says to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. So to secure the rights of Americans, that's why the American government is allowed to exist at all. Not to secure the rights of Mexican citizens that have invaded here, not to secure the rights of, look, there's many fine people in every country of the world. That's obvious. And good people from other countries, there's a process where they can come here. They can become part of we the people. And some of our best Americans became we the people because they actually wanted to be real Americans, right? And now we have some of their ancestry right here. Well, and here, obviously, I'm not like Indian or whatever, you know, but look, like people come here for the right reasons, and now we have like huge 2A advocates and lawyers and just all these people that are helping. But our government's supposed to secure our rights, not invaders' rights. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I've been practicing law since 17 years now. I don't understand why our courts are so infatuated with all of the illegals when we're second class, third class, maybe fourth. I don't know. And Congress doesn't seem to care. I know they're going to throw us a bone here with the Hearing Protection Act or the Short Act or whatever else you want to call it.
Yeah.
But I mean, dude, not to get over my what's it called? Let me just show you this. I can't show that. It has my address on it. So we pay a lot in taxes. With the IRS, send me a letter. Get on a payment plan because I made too much money last year. Because I work all freaking day long. I work on the weekends. I just work all the time. Like when you call me, I don't say, "Hey man, I'm not working right now." I answer the phone. I talk to so many people and I work. And I'm sitting here paying taxes and I'm like, what are my tax dollars going to? Well, Israel just started a war last night. We're sending money to probably Egypt, probably all of these other countries, all the money that we have to defend our own borders, which I know we're not spending a lot of money defending our own borders, but we should have like an amazing border with Mexico that doesn't allow anyone in that the United States doesn't know about. I'm tired of spending money when I drive a 2012 Accord with 247,000 miles on it. I'd like to buy a new car, but I can't buy a new car because I have to keep paying my taxes. I'm going to have surgery to fix a hernia that's going to cost me like $6,000. I couldn't get in to see him because there's too many illegals here, and they get first class treatment. I'm sitting here having to wait. Then I have to pay almost $6,000, which is my deductible because Obamacare destroyed my health care.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's for me? Like, is there anything for me here? Or am I just supposed to be the piggy bank for Uncle Sam so they can give all of it away to everybody else? I'm tired of it. You talk about the consent of the governed. I withdraw my consent.
Yeah, I don't consent either. It's like we're literally sitting here, we're taxed to no end, and we have a heavy boot of the government right on our neck. Now, I'm trying, with all that said, I'm trying to be optimistic. So the Hearing Protection Act, though, so basically Section 2 of the Hearing Protection Act has passed the United States House of Representatives, the lower chamber. Mm-hmm. It's been sent and transmitted over to the United States Senate, where it's in hot deliberation, we'll say right now. The Democrats have been coming out with press releases against it. We've seen gun rights groups like GOA is the main one I've seen, I'm sure, and others are there interviewing United States senators right now. I saw the senator from Kansas on a recent video. So we've got the pro-2A groups that are bringing positive attention towards this Hearing Protection Act in the Senate. And we have the Democrat senators and their gun control groups funded by billionaires, even though they say the Democrats the party for the poor, but they have billionaires funding them. They're against it. So don't think for 1 minute, guys, that any of this Hearing Protection Act is a slam dunk, because there is an active movement as we speak to try to stop it. Have you noticed that?
Oh, 100%. And it's funny that, I live streamed the HR 38 vote, and all of the people were getting up there talking about how we're trying to make silencers legal and reduce the tax on it. And, these are used by criminals and everything. And I'm like, they're not used by criminals. We know that that's a lie. We know that there are millions and millions of suppressors. I can't even remember the number. It's like 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. It's in the millions. But there's this thing, and I'm not an expert on this, so I'm going to talk out of my what here. But there's this thing in the Senate that it has to pass called the Byrd Rule that was put in there by Robert Byrd?
Yeah.
The guy that used to wear the sheets, one of Biden's friends, right?
Yes.
Okay, that guy. Where it has to be directly to pass in reconciliation, it has to be like a tax, right? Revenue or tax or something.
Yes.
We have Democrats arguing now that this is not a tax. The NFA is not really a tax. It's some kind of policy that they're trying to change, which would not satisfy the Byrd Rule, because you can't do reconciliation stuff that's not like some kind of tax. Every single court that has ever ruled on the NFA, going back to 1937 in Sunzinski, has said that the NFA is a tax, period. It was passed, the National Firearms Act was passed in 1934 with Homer Cummings, the then Attorney General of the United States, talking about how this was a tax. We couldn't ban this stuff because of the Second Amendment, but no one would dare question our authority to tax it.
Yep.
Okay. How are you? But this is what the Democrats do. They tell you one thing. It's like the gaslighting. I never really understood gaslighting until I watched what Democrats do, where they tell you what's happening and it's not real. Like none of what they say is actually happening. Like all of this due process for illegals, when they say you can't deport them without due process. And then you go back and look and you're like, wow, Kilmer Abrego Garcia has 2 orders of removal. That means that he got due process not once, but twice. Not that he's never had it. He got it twice.
That's not enough.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. In my opinion, and if you guys want to hear, I was going to play it while we're live, but I just want to keep talking and hanging out with all of you. If you guys want to go over to the 2A Edu X feed, my most recent repost is a video that Gun Owners of America put on. It's about a 10-minute video. It'll spell out the whole Byrd Rule, kind of from start to finish, how all of it works. I think it's a highly educational piece of material, but it basically works like this. So they can come up, and there's a Senate parliamentarian. This is an unelected person that you've never heard of. I can't even remember her name right now as I speak, but there's the Senate parliamentarian and their office. And basically the way this works is a certain part of the Senate floor hearings, we'll call them, procedures down there. At a certain point, they can say to the parliamentarian, I believe this violates the Byrd Rule. And then the parliamentarian will have to make a decision on whether these proposed bills or amendments is a better way to word these at this point, amendments to the budget reconciliation bill. The parliamentarian will have a hearing or an investigation, because there are like 5 parameters that she has to follow. But it's not just one lady, even though she is the Senate parliamentarian. And this is going to make all of your head spin, because this shows we went from the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and we thought we lived in a representative republic. But then there's this parliamentarian, and they have this huge staff, and they'll do their powwow, and they have to go by this criteria, and they'll decide whether this is germane to the reconciliation bill or not via the Byrd Rule. But here's something a lot of people aren't talking about. And we've seen this before in Michigan many times for all the live streams we showed here, as well as the United States Congress. And I know you talked about this, Stambo, at the end of your when you were doing your video on it. They can suspend their own rules at any second they want.
That's the thing that kills me in that HR 38, right after they were complaining about, us trying to bring weapons of war back into the streets. They're like going on to other topics, and they're like, we're going to suspend the rules. And they get, what do you mean you're going to suspend the rules?
Yes.
Okay. So you could basically suspend the rules at will. So this Byrd Rule is a rule that the Senate made up, and then you could also suspend that. Oh my gosh. This is like, what a joke of a system.
So here's the way I understand that it works. And I know it works this way in Michigan with their House of Representatives. And I believe it works the same way on the U.S. level when it comes to this. Although, to make a quick note, guys, the rules of the Michigan House are under a different set of rules than the U.S. Congress. But when it comes to this, I believe it's about the same. And this is just my opinion, guys. I did some research on this, but I'm not an expert. So when it comes to a Democrat will most likely invoke the Byrd rules. What's going to happen? The parliamentarian will decide yay or nay if the amendment's compatible with the Byrd rule or not. Then all of a sudden, they can literally come back and say, I move to suspend the Byrd rule. It just takes one senator to do it, and it's a simple majority to suspend the Byrd rule. But the way I understand it is it's actually in the opinion of the chair. So they can say, all in favor, rise. In the opinion of the chair, the yeas have it. The rule's now been suspended, just like how you saw them suspend that rule with nobody voting at all at the end of the House passing the budget reconciliation bill.
Yeah. Does it feel kind of like a scam to you that I mean,
Yeah, because I thought I lived in a country where the Constitution was the supreme law of the land. The second time it was amended, it says shall not be infringed. Okay, check, check, and check. And now I'm sitting here thinking, well, okay, depending on what motion is raised by a senator and what the parliamentarian and her staff to decide, then we'll have to just hope, and we're going to be crossing our fingers, guys, because I know this is going to happen. Oh gosh, please suspend the Byrd rule. Wait, so we have to suspend some rule to where we're allowed to have the Constitution again?
right. A rule that the Senate made up.
Yes.
Yes. A KKK senator made it up.
Yes.
Yes. And we're supposed to be bound by this dude?
Yes.
Like,
he's been dead a long time, and I know Biden and Hillary gave eulogies at his funeral, and
yeah.
it forever enshrines him, and this wonderful guy, they say. And
oh yeah, so great. God is, I can't say that. Anyways.
So here's the issue that we have, right? So, and some of this, guys, major gun rights groups that are working boots on the ground, they're acknowledging this. I don't want to say they're admitting it because this isn't a gotcha type of thing. They're just acknowledging there is going to be some procedural hurdles with this Byrd rule. Now, many of the gun rights groups are very optimistic that we can overcome. Here's a little issue we have right now where all of you need to be calling your senators like crazy if you believe that even works anymore. And I'll tell you, I think it kind of does, actually, because I've spent a lot of time at my state capitol. And if a representative gets even like 3 to 5 calls on one issue, that's enough where they meet with their staff in the back room and spend 5 minutes on it. So, like, it might take like hundreds, if not thousands of people for a U.S. senator. But we need to get the Hearing Protection Act Section 3 passed, too. And it needs to get around this Byrd rule and all this. Because look, this is a huge victory, and I have to preface it with this. If not, people from certain states get mad at me, but this is just how I feel about it. Look, I want the Hearing Protection Act to pass no matter what. If it has to be, and this isn't the way I want it to be, but it has to be where Section 2 passes, and it makes it illegal for me to even maybe get a silencer or a suppressor at all in Michigan. At the very least, I won't be able to transfer them face-to-face or make my own. I'm pretty darn clear of that, even with our AG's opinion and our statute. I still do want it to pass, guys. But this is a huge problem where if just the Section 2, which was passed through the House, passes the Senate, and they don't add Section 3, we're going to end up with a lot of states where right now it is lawful for you to go buy a suppressor pursuant to the NFA. And then in certain situations, it's not all the same. You might not be able to buy one at all anymore, or you'll lose some of your options to getting one if it passes. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I mean, so some of the state laws tie suppressor legality to whether or not it's either registered, and that's a better argument, and I'll give you that argument, or if it is, if you have an NFA tax stamp. And that's going to be the hardest one, because if registration and tax stamp goes away, you could make the excuse me, you could make the argument that registering it by filling out a 4473 at a dealer could be considered you're registering it with the federal government. I don't know if that argument's going to work, but then that would take out the Form 1 aspect of doing a suppressor, because it would not be registered. You would just make it. If it's over the counter, You could just make it, right? It's considered a firearm.
Like an oil filter.
Yeah, well, it's considered a firearm, so you can make your own firearms now. In some states, you don't have to serialize it or register it. In some states, you do. But like Mississippi, it would have to be, quote, registered. Some states have, as long as it's lawful under federal law. But that state's not going to be affected by the just Section 2 of the Hearing Protection Act, because it would be, quote, lawful under federal law for you to go to a dealer and pick it up over the counter.
Yes.
So some states are going to have to work on their laws. I mean, maybe for a state like Michigan, that it's tied to, a different form of registration or licensed contrivance or whatever they.
Yeah, you have to be licensed by an entity that doesn't even issue licenses anymore.
Yeah, these are super old laws when they were passed, but there's going to have to be some work. Unfortunately, this is how it works, man. And I wish it were easier than this. I mean, I don't know if you remember just a couple of years ago when the Obergefell decision came out, where they legalized gay marriage everywhere, and they're forcing all of these courts, like in Mississippi, that was a big deal about our circuit court having to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples. But the Supreme Court did that on its own. They didn't wait for the Senate to pass the Byrd rule or any of the other rules. The Supreme Court just did it. Yeah. That's another thing. It's like, well, why can't they do that for us? Dear Lord, I've seen what you've done for other people, and I want it too, right? For my issue, I want the Supreme Court to say, wait a second, the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. Let's start interpreting it as shall not be infringed. Not, does this meaningfully burden your Second Amendment right? Yeah, it does. It does. I'm meaningfully burdened.
Yeah, so you can still buy a gun somewhere. I mean, you can still buy a break action single shot shotgun, so you can still keep and bear arms. You're not burdened enough.
Yeah.
It's just,
I know, but they think like that. Judges think like that too.
I know.
I mean, recent cases where a judge said, well, the purchase permits were not infringing on your right to keep and bear arms because you already have a gun.
Yeah.
So you don't need to buy another one. You already have one. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and they keep forgetting. That's why, I know this wouldn't work, but I just want to go so bad. This is like in a dream. Stand up in front of the Supreme Court in a real case and be like, it's the Bill of Rights, not the Bill of Needs.
Yeah.
Stop talking about what I need.
Man,
stop talking,
I don't know that I would be able to argue a Supreme Court case on guns. I don't think I could do it. And not because I don't know the material. I obviously know the material. It's when I get one of these idiot questions, I'm going to be like, I don't understand. Do you want me to say that my clients are terrorist members and then y'all will take it seriously? Is that what I need to do? Because I'll say it if I have to.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, this whole Duncan thing, the magazine ban case out of the Ninth Circuit, Mark Smith is a YouTube lawyer, and he was talking about how he doesn't think Duncan's going to be granted cert. I actually agree with him. I don't think Duncan's going to be granted cert. And it's not because I don't want it to be granted cert. I just don't think the Supreme Court cares. And that makes me really upset. Because when you've got a court like the Ninth Circuit that went out of its way to take that case back to a panel that it should not have gone to, when they had to issue a separate opinion on why it was okay to bring it back to that same panel, the amount of tomfoolery, and that's my polite way of saying it, that the Ninth Circuit engages in when they rule on gun rights cases would shock you. And maybe it wouldn't because you read some of them. But for the people of your audience that do not read these opinions, the Ninth Circuit is one of the worst. I mean, if not the worst, there's never been a pro Second Amendment decision from the Ninth Circuit ever that's been allowed to last. We always win at the panel, the 3-judge panel, and then we lose at the en banc court, and then the Supreme Court doesn't take it.
And this is what I say to summarize all of that up. Look, to believe what these people say literally requires the listener to be dumber than the speaker. And it's insulting that they would do this, but yet here we are. So, real quick, I'm going to read a couple super chats to thank the sponsors of the channel tonight. Before I do, though, check out 2A Law. The link to Stambo's channel is right down there in the description. A really good channel. He does live streams, standalone videos, and I'm a subscriber, and I look forward to all of this stuff popping up in my feed. And I think you guys would really like his channel, so check it out. We have A. Steinman became a channel member today. Thank you. I appreciate it. C. Meyer, what's happening, man? A local boy, a channel member, and a super chat says, good evening from Newport, Michigan. Shout out, man. Nice area. We have Denny's plant-based journey, member for 51 months. Wow. He says, keep up the good work. Thank you, Denny. I appreciate you, man. And we have B. Hall just became a YouTube channel member. Thank you. I appreciate it. We have my good friend Ronald Matty with a super chat. What's happening, dude? He says, we have a good chance to change the tide in 26. No, we do. In the state of Michigan, guys, and in the federal level. Like, look, if you guys haven't noticed, I get pretty black-pilled on here. But it's because there should be a light at the end of the tunnel. First, you have to realize how low you've sunken. And that's one of the main purposes of this channel, to let everyone realize this is not okay. And hopefully it'll get enough people pissed off enough and motivated enough to finally get off their butts and do something about it, right? And we have Rescue Nut with a super chat and a channel member says coffee refill. Well, that was perfect timing, actually. I need one because it's empty. If you guys want to save 20% off your first order at Blackout Coffee, check out my link in the description. And if you're already a customer, just using my link when you make your orders does help support the channel. And Barney Brady, what's happening, Barney? Longtime viewer of the channel, just became a member. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. So just to summarize the Hearing Protection Act, then I want to talk about some more dramatic things that are kind of wild. So we need Section 3 to pass because, as we just got done talking about, if it doesn't, we're going to require some states that are kind of blue or purple to change state laws. That's unlikely anytime soon. We're going to have to wait for the Supreme Court, who will give a Brayu gangbanger thug a hearing within minutes probably. But you will have to wait for years for SCOTUS to figure this out. So Section 3 is going to help with some of these state laws, right? With the silencers and suppressors. And then the Short Act, which I think that's a little bit more of a, I don't want to quite say Hail Mary. That's a little bit bigger ask, but you need to do it. You need to keep asking, demanding. Look, don't threaten them. If you threaten their life, dude, you're going to be in big trouble. Don't do it, guys. I'm being dead serious. Don't threaten to whip their butt, nothing. But you are allowed to call your senator's office. You can ask politely. You can demand assertively that they add Section 3 of the Hearing Protection Act and the Short Act into this one big, beautiful bill, because that could remove your short-barreled rifles and shotguns, which includes brace pistols, according to the Biden administration. That could keep those from being NFA items, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just comment on what you said about don't threaten. If you call up your senator, and let's pretend that your senator is not particularly pro-gun, like a lot of them are, and you are that guy that's like, I demand my rights and I'm going to go XYZ and do that, they're going to say, we cannot. Like, number one, you'll probably be in trouble. But number two, they'll say, we cannot pass this because I just got the craziest call from someone who's, pro 2A, and this is what he said he was going to do to me. And like, we're not going to give them what they want. So you have to be assertive and respectful. And I don't like being respectful to someone who's actively working against me. But in order to get what you want, tell them calmly. It's like the Second Amendment says shall not be infringed. And, since 1934, we've had this $200 tax on a constitutional right. And if this was a $200 tax on the right to vote, the right to get married, whatever it is, you as a purple-haired liberal would be upset with this. It's not okay just because it has to deal with another right. What happens if every time you get pulled over, the cop's like, you have the right to remain silent if you pay $200 and wait 9 months to get approved?
Dude, that's my point. That's my point to all of this. And I wasn't joking earlier when I said, if you literally made it a law that said it's a tax, so it's constitutional, that's what they've said about the NFA, you have to literally put 1 penny into this little piggy bank before you can go to the voting polls. People lose their mind and burn this whole country down.
Yeah.
Because that's how that side works. And they would do it too.
Like the Stamp Act, when they put stamps on pieces of paper back a long, long time ago, they're like, oh, we're not going to do that. We're going to revolt.
I know.
Yeah.
This is a stamp. This is a tax stamp.
This is an actual stamp.
Dude, this stuff's so thick you could literally cut it with a knife. It's insane.
Yeah.
And look, guys, one more thing just to cap off that whole when you call your senator, what you need to do, and you need to do it often. Look, I'm telling you guys the truth. When I call my state representative, I literally have my state representative, state senator on speed dial right here. Like, I'm not going to do it because she was just up till midnight in session, but there's a 50-50 chance I could call my state rep right now on speakerphone and she'd say hi to you guys. Look, you don't have to necessarily call them that much, but when I call my United States congressman, they'll be like, oh, Mr. Young, what's on your mind today? So I'm always calling all year. Don't threaten anybody because, like, your life's too valuable and your family and friends appreciate you being there in their life. You don't want to be in a dark hole for no reason because they will make an example out of you. But don't mistake what I said either. You don't have to grovel. You don't have to beg. You don't have to plead. Like, it's perfectly acceptable, and you're allowed to just, you can talk to them with a complete monotone to say, I'm calling as a Second Amendment voter. That's my primary voting issue, and I demand that you vote yes to pass the Hearing Protection Act with Section 3 and the Short Act. Have a nice day. It can literally be that simple, right?
Yeah, even if you don't mean that you want them to have a nice day, but
you can say bye. You don't even have to say have a nice day. Just yeah. But you're
I don't want to lie. I'm just kidding.
But you're going to talk to their intern, their staffer, and it's a very low-level staffer, but they do have a computer program where they'll input, and they're keeping track of the yays and nays on their own aspect of things, you know.
Yeah, and I've heard that, you know, an email is good. It counts for one person. A phone call counts for like 10 or 20. I don't know. It's a lot more than just one person because they think if someone is motivated enough to call, there's a lot of other people that aren't motivated enough to call and just think that someone else is going to call on their behalf. But I fall into this trap too, man. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I need to call my senator and tell him this is how I want him to vote. And then I get busy with work. And then I'm like, fine, I'll just send an email. But it's just not as good as having a phone call. It's really not. I mean, if I had a day off when they were in session, I would drive over to DC and go sit and talk to whoever is there. So instead of saying, you know, Stephen wrote an email or Stephen called, it's Stephen showed up to my office, and you can actually go to their office, knock on the door and go in and talk to whoever is manning that little office right there.
Dude, and that's like 1,000 phone calls and like a million emails if you actually show up.
Yeah, I should do that next week.
Yeah, I go to my state capitol frequently, and a lot of the staff know me by name, and you actually establish real connections, actually physically walking in there and telling them what your issues are. So yeah, for sure. Yeah. We did have another member super chat comment from Ron Wayne. What's happening, man? He's a terrific guest.
Oh, he's the worst. The guest is the worst. Yeah.
I mean, this guest ain't bad, guys, is he?
Do what?
I mean, he's not a bad guest, is he, guys? He's all right.
He's the worst.
Bill Camperas, a channel member, and he just gifted 5 2A EDU memberships. Well, thanks, man. And make sure you guys that just got gifts, thank Bill Camperas. And we have Ronald Matty says, another super chat, thanks, man, is if you don't call or email, they don't hear you. Oh, I agree. Look, Ron, I literally just threatened. I mean, she was up till midnight last night because I was watching my Michigan House of Representatives session, but I said, dude, I'm half tempted to call my state rep while we're live right now just to prove a point. Ron and I have the same state representative, so he gets a little inside joke there. So what about this next topic? So look, guys, this is why you want to subscribe to 2A Law, because he actually, he's the first person I knew that actually broke all this. Can you summarize real quick what's going on with rare breed triggers right now?
Yeah, so let me back up a little bit. Remember, they settled their lawsuit, they settled their lawsuit with DOJ, where the DOJ and ATF have said basically that FRTs aren't machine gun conversion devices, and we're going to give all of these back. But oh, by the way, you have to enforce your patent. DOJ and ATF agreed that, and Rare Breed too, and Nagger and Texas Gun Rights, those are the main plaintiffs in that case, that Rare Breed would have to enforce their patents going forward, and that Rare Breed could not make a force reset trigger for a handgun, not a pistol, but a handgun.
Yes.
And they defined, I can't remember if they defined handgun or if they defined pistol, but basically it's like if the magazine goes into the grip, you can't make a force reset trigger for it. If the magazine goes in front of the grip, like the AR-15 does, then you can make a force reset trigger, because an AR-15 pistol is basically just, an AR-15 that has like no stock on it, whatever.
That's right.
So a couple of days ago, I get alerts on various things that I track. I track a lot of different Second Amendment cases. Every morning that I wake up about 4:30 every morning. I also go to bed about 9 o'clock every night, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, thanks for staying up.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. But I wake up very early, and the first thing I do, I get on my iPad and I run a Lexis search for Second Amendment cases. And this is really nerdy, but this is just what I do. So every morning I read through all of the Second Amendment cases that happened yesterday, because it typically takes about a day to get loaded into the Lexis database. And then I see what's going on. Well, I was doing a different search on Court Listener, which is like a free pacer. And I saw all of these force reset trigger lawsuits, rare breed lawsuits suing people that were selling other like either rare breed knockoff triggers or I don't know if I think there were super safeties in there as well, which is a different type of.
That's different altogether. I wouldn't say that's.
I know, but for purposes of what I'm saying, it's Rare Breed is asserting its patent 247, I believe, as to the super safety or to some part of the super safety trigger enhancement device. How about that? Yeah. And I read through these and I was like, man, they are not kidding. They sued. I think 3 different defendants, Idaho and 2 in West Texas.
I thought I heard Spike's Tactical was on there. And
Spike's Tactical is weird, man. So they did. That's the 4th case that I found where the IP company and Rare Breed were suing Spike's Tactical, and I forget the name of the guy that the other defendant that they're suing.
These nuts or something goofy like that.
That's a different case. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. There's a whole bunch of cases. So D's Nuts was selling either some kind of rare breed trigger or a super safety, and so they're going after D's Nuts pretty hard. But the Spike's Tactical thing is they're accusing Spike's Tactical and Spider Hole, which they allege is a shell company, that somehow induced one of the lawyers for Rare Breed, either I don't even know. I don't want to say the wrong name and then have the wrath of Rare Breed come down on Stambo.
Somehow they tricked them into entering some type of agreement, or that's how I recall
that Spike's Tactical was going to fund ABC IP somehow, and they fraudulently induced one of the attorneys to join this company. I don't understand it, but it was interesting when I read it, because I was like, what the hell is going on? So, it's really interesting stuff, but I've clicked on all the cases. So when something gets filed, I'm going to review it and do a live on it and see what happens, man. It's just really interesting stuff. I mean, they agreed to enforce their patent with the federal government, and the federal government said that we would help you enforce your patent to the extent that they can help. Entering a statement of interest or doing something else.
Well, what I'm about to say is, in my opinion, and look, like, this is nuts, but in my opinion, this whole thing has like this icky feeling to it. Like, none of it's sitting right with me.
Yeah, it's super. Let me unplug my heater right quick. I know I have a heater going. It's really weird. I don't have a problem with IP law, intellectual property stuff. I think it's good that we have those protections in this country, or we'll end up like China, where they could just steal all our stuff, and then there's no real reason to invest in any type of research and development, product development, whatever you want to call it, because then anyone can knock it off. So I don't like that system. I like our system. What I don't like is the government coming along and saying, we will help you defend your patents because we think these are dangerous devices, or they have a public safety risk, or we don't want you making them, or we don't want anyone making them for handguns.
Well, that's the whole weird thing, and this is where this is a topic that could last 3 hours, so I probably shouldn't even broach it, but I'll try to be brief. it's like, you think of like certain like fascistic qualities to certain governments where it's like, wow, the government's involved with this unholy alliance through like all of these individual, like they're private businesses, but they're actually like pseudo government operations, but like the train still runs on time. It's like, I don't know, when I just see stuff like this, it drives me nuts. It's like, so now the government's like will allow you to exist as long as you sue the living snot out of everybody and just act like a total prick face about everything, and then you can exist, but we're still going to neuter you even more. But then, like, I thought that they had already won with Reed O'Connor, who's a very powerful federal district judge, and it's just all this is making my head spin.
Yeah, it's confusing. So, I mean, I've settled a whole bunch of cases. And one of the things that I tell my clients when we settle cases, you can control what goes on in a settlement. You can't always control what happens in a courtroom. So, yes, Rare Breed won in the district court in Northern District of Texas in front of Judge O'Connor. Rare Breed lost at the Eastern District of New York, which is not a shocking result, but they were preliminarily enjoined in New York. Now, while this case was being litigated at the Fifth Circuit, which is typically a conservative court and good for gun rights, you can't tell what panel you're going to get. You can't tell how that panel is going to come out. So I get the reason why they settled.
Okay.
I really do. Because I've settled a whole bunch of cases, and it's not up to the attorney to settle it, it's up to the client. So if the client wants to settle and get the victory that they know that they can control a little bit, hey man, like, it's just how it rolls. Some clients will not want to settle, and they'll say, hey man, let's roll the dice and let's go for it and see what happens. That's fine too. It's the client's decision to settle a case or to not settle a case. But I get why they did it. And if I had a client that was like, I want to settle this case, but I want DOJ to help me enforce my patents, I'll say, good luck if that's what you want. But it really is what the client wants. And in this case, that was something that Rare Breed apparently wanted, or maybe DOJ wanted. And I mean, they were able to enter into that, and it's good for Rare Breed, to have DOJ come in and say, we will help.
You have a monopoly now. That's just my opinion. That might not be the legal word, but
well, let's just go with that for a second, because that's what patents do, is they give you a monopoly on your patented device. That's why they're so important, because for however many years, I'm not a patent lawyer. Okay. Right. I don't even play one on TV, but they give you a monopoly on that specific device.
For your specific device, not all devices.
Not all devices.
Related to, or
no, not all devices, but that's something that they're going to have to litigate. But for you to get DOJ's promise to help, that's a big thing. I mean, like, that's a really big thing.
And that's a huge win for them. Now, I appreciate you giving, and this is why it's cool to have like a very experienced and, quite frankly, top Second Amendment litigator in front of us right now, because he knows how it works in real life, guys. So his opinion is a very valuable opinion, and that's like the real opinion. I'm going to give you guys my real quick black pill opinion, if you don't mind. Because there's two, this is why this whole thing's making my head spin, right? To me, it's like, okay, Rare Breed settled. Now, I look at this. I know there was a bunch of different patent issues that's been going on, and they've been suing different companies, and some have gone out of business in the past. That's separate from all this. This was whether it's a machine gun or it ain't a machine gun, as far as the federal government was concerned in this case. To me, it's like, dude, a settlement? Like, no, this was settled a long time ago. It all got kicked off Concord Bridge and Lexington Green 250 years ago. A year later, 1776, Declaration of Independence. 1789, ratified in 1791, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So why are we settling stuff now when this has been settled score since the day this country was founded? So it just pisses me off that we're even here right now at all. And like, a big win is like, oh, well, we'll just compromise a little bit on something that a lot of people fought and died to settle. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, I 100% get it. Again, it's up to the client, and clients have different motivations to do different things. So apparently in Rare
Yeah.
Breed's mind, having a promise from the government to help them enforce a patent was a big deal.
And I want to tie this back in to go full circle because here's the problem though. Look, I have like this constitutional purist dream that we could actually become the United States of America again, where the Constitution means what it says what it means. But here's the problem. We go back to that clause from the Declaration of Independence. It operates at the consent of the governed. Look, there may be a time when we have another civil war, another revolutionary war in this country. I'm kind of leery of that because if you look at all the revolutions throughout history, recorded history, almost all the time, except for in America's case and like one other one, usually when there's a revolution, you end up under a more despotic government than you had before. It usually actually goes backwards, believe it or not. But you sit and think about it. It's like, but here's the thing though, dude. Like, I don't think this country's ready for a physical revolution. I don't see people except for these leftists that hate America out there marching and burning down the streets. Our side's not doing that. And I'm not suggesting anybody does. So until literally there's like American Revolution Part 2, we kind of have to look at like, yet here we are. And we are constrained underneath 250 years of common law, which is case law, which is BS because the Constitution should be supreme to any common law. But we're just finding ourselves where we are, though. And we have to look at the realities. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I might have, I don't know how popular my opinion is on this. I think that we are headed for a split. Our country is. Yeah. I don't know how we come back from when half of the country hates where we are now, and half of the country is okay with it or even wants it. I don't know how we survive it as a country. And, they say like a house divided cannot stand, but it's like, is that really true? I mean, we see what California has done, suing Trump to take away his power to federalize the National Guard, like the California Guard. Like that's just period. That's Trump's power to do so. I mean, that's the way I understand it, is the president can do what he just did. And then we had a court step in and say, no, you can't do that. And then the Ninth Circuit stayed that court's order. Dude, like it's really serious stuff because we're going to get like, let's pretend that the Ninth Circuit comes out and says, no, Trump, you can't federalize the National Guard, and says something that we all know is not what the Constitution says. At that point, if I'm Trump's lawyer, I'm telling him, ignore it, ignore the court. It doesn't matter what the court says. Like they've just delegitimized themselves too far, like one step too far, and you can't follow what they say, or else you're ceding your power to the court, and you cannot do that. Like we have co-equal branches of government. Like it's not who has this power, or I mean, who has more power, who has less power. It's they all have the same amount of power. They have different power, but they have the same amount of power. The courts are actively taking or trying to take Trump's power from him. And
the Supreme Court does. The inferior courts actually aren't in the Constitution.
They're not in the Constitution.
There you go.
Yeah, so. Except for what Congress declare. The Congress can establish more courts or not. But the Supreme Court, you're right. Yeah, the Supreme Court. But even
a lower federal judge, though, is not supposed to be equal to the president. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's the Supreme Court. But the way that it works now is that these lower federal courts, they're like, I don't like what Trump's doing. Why? Well, I was appointed by Biden, and I'm not very smart, and we're going to just nationwide injunction.
Yeah.
I would be very honest with the president, and I would tell him, like, just ignore it. Like it's going to lead to some kind of constitutional crisis, like the left likes to keep saying on TV. But you're the one that's creating this constitutional crisis.
Well, yeah.
But for me, as a dyed-in-the-wool, law-abiding, like constitutional lawyer, it's really hard for me to say something like that. So when you've black-pilled me, get ready, because there's going to be a whole bunch of other Stambos that aren't as black-pilled as me that would say probably a long time ago, we've said ignore the courts for a long time.
We've seen it happen before. There were times that federal judges ruled against Lincoln during the Civil War, and he locked them up and in many cases suspended people's right of a writ of habeas corpus, which, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I believe in plain English means that you can just sit there, not even officially charged with what your crime is.
Go to jail.
Yeah.
Don't pass
Go
go.
to jail.
Yeah.
Because I said so.
That's right. Yeah. And I don't like that. But, you know, I hear what people are saying. I don't like people being black bagged on the streets, right? This isn't some V for Vendetta movie. But you break the law, you got to go home. You got to leave. And if you've got these orders of removal, you've had your due process. It's time to go. You got to go.
I know, and these are foreign invaders in many cases. A lot of times these aren't good people, because here's the thing, man. We're finding more and more through just a lot of polls and different other podcasters I've been listening to. So I'm not giving you guys official sources because this isn't my forte, but I'm under the impression most of the good immigrants in this country that love being Americans, they're like getting really, really pissed off at all these invaders, even more than people like me are for the most part.
Yeah, because do you know why that is, though?
Well, because they had to spend their 7 years and their tens of thousands of dollars in some cases to go through the system.
And learn English and learn the history of the country. I mean, the people that come over here legally, like my dad. Okay, so my dad speaks like 5 languages. And growing up in my household, it was English only.
Okay.
My dad was so freaking American. He's like, this is an English country. We're going to speak English.
With like a thick accent and everything, right?
Yeah, but now he doesn't have it at all. But I'm thinking like, man, you know, I'm 46 years old. I wish that I had learned all the languages he spoke. I mean, he speaks like Arabic and Greek and French and English and something else. I don't even remember what it is.
Right.
But can you imagine growing up in a household like that where like your dad speaks all of these languages, but only wants you to learn English because that's American to him in his mind. It's American. We're just going to speak English.
Now, was he flying any other countries' flags in your front yard? And
no,
like you see right now, and
no, not at all.
American flags.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well, that's what I thought you'd say. But
he's more American than some of these. Well, the majority of these leftist Americans that want to give the country away and cheapen the American citizenship that he fought so hard to get.
Yeah.
Come over here and give birth, and you're automatically a citizen. What is that nonsense?
Anchor baby and.
No, absolutely not.
And the senator that helped write that part of the 14th Amendment said this should not be construed as that, but nobody wants to talk about that either.
No. And the Supreme Court, just to tell you, man, that opinion will be out by the end of this month.
Well, we'll have to see what happens with that.
I'm going to tell you what'll happen. Nothing. They're going to rule that, yep, that's what it means, that you can come over here across the border, pop a kid out, and that it becomes a citizen. Do you know why? Look, I'll just tell you why.
Well, I know they're all recused. They're recusing themselves from this one case because of their book publishers. Is it the money? Is that why? I don't know.
What, for the birthright citizenship stuff?
Well, no, just why they never want to do anything controversial.
Oh, well, they're going to say, well, you have reliance interests and everyone relied on this. And so you have literal birthing tourism from China where people fly over here just to give birth in California and some of these other communist places.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, well, you can't take this away from them. People have grown accustomed to this and it will be super controversial, but Americans don't want anchor babies. Like, I'm telling you, it just cheapens the citizenship when anyone can get it, not work for it, not earn it, but just get it. And I have a very low opinion right now that this will come out in our favor.
I feel you're probably right. And it just comes down to people's morals, their principles in which they were raised. Because I was raised in a manner in which if you've been doing something wrong, that's bad. And guess what? The longer you keep doing that wrong, the worse it makes it.
The worse.
And not the whole thing that we hear so much in the courts. Well, hey, that's just the way it's always been. Yeah. This has been improperly interpreted for the last 150 years. So now we have to keep interpreting it the wrong way forever. It's like, no, that makes it more wrong.
This is why we're never going to get rid of Obamacare. Obamacare has destroyed healthcare, and people don't like. some people understand it.
Well,
Like
I
when
have
you're,
it. I'm on the marketplace because I'm self-employed, so I
yeah,
understand it.
yeah, me too. With a $5,500 deductible.
Yeah.
It's like I have to pay $5,500 before you pay $1. Like when
Yeah.
did that happen? Because I mean, I'm going for surgery next month, and I haven't had to have surgery, and so I'm thinking I pay $1,000 a month for this policy. It covers nothing, and it won't cover anything until I pay $5,500 for a deductible. And I'm thinking, what is this? Like I actually talked to my wife. I said, maybe we should just go to Dubai. I could get the surgery over there for $3,000.
Yeah. You know what you should really do? You should just quit your job and I don't know, just quit your job and start being a total D-bag and a total jerk off, and then you'll just, I don't know, just you'll have full coverage insurance with no deductible on everything.
That's right. And go to an ER right now, and it's full of illegals, and they're on Medicaid, or they use the EMTALA, the federal law that says that the hospitals cannot turn you away
Yeah.
if you're in labor, or if you have some kind of emergent treatment that's necessary to sustain your life or something. Like, I'm sorry, man. I don't have any more money to give these people. They're taking the government is taking so much money from me, and it's painful.
Well, think about this for a minute. You're obviously a very smart guy. I mean, the levels you've litigated, and he's a smart guy. Trust me, guys, very smart. I don't know that I'm particularly smart, but sometimes I think I'm clever here and there. And then I just think about it. Sometimes I'm like, man, I'm an idiot. This Stambo guy's even stupider than me. Like, how stupid would you have to be to actually try to be a productive member of society when you get picked on by your government and harassed the most? And then every type of like just complete derelict and person that just hates this country gets to reap the rewards of all the suckers who want to be. I mean, I'm only saying that because, yeah, I don't know how much longer this country can still stay united with these things pulling at each other.
I honestly, man, I don't see how it could be. I really don't. I mean, and I'm not saying like I want it to split apart, but I just don't. I don't. It might be 20 years, it might be 50 years, but I just don't see it as a going concern for a long time. We're too far apart.
Yeah.
Like half of the people can't even tell you what a woman is. Like Tim Waltz. Did you see Tim Waltz yesterday? Nancy Mace asked him what a woman is, and you know what his answer is? I don't understand the question. Like he wasn't even trying to be funny. I think he really doesn't understand the question, but
like yeah, like he can't even just say, oh no, it's like an adult female person.
It's too hard for him to say it.
Boys
like,
have a penis, girls have a vagina.
Yeah, I'd say, my wife is a woman. How do you know? She gave birth. Yeah, she gave birth to my daughter.
Well, she's a birthing person. You can't say woman because this is the thing that's so crazy, man.
Yeah.
Could you imagine talking to your wife and saying, hello there, birthing person. Hello, darling.
No, because she'd pull out a gun and shoot me with it.
Well, good.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
I'd support her too. I'd be like, oh, she got me.
I'm like, no more Stambo channel. He called his wife a birthing person, but it's all good.
Yeah, I deserved it.
I'm going to read this one more chat. I know it's about way past your bedtime. Ronald Batty with another super chat. Thanks, man. He said, all roads lead to court. Now, if we can cover this in 30 seconds, because this last thing that's in the title, I literally called you over this like in despair a little bit, so I'll try to go quick. So the Michigan, there was a huge victory. Okay, my buddy Rob Olson, and I'm sure others, his team will call it whatever, from GOA. Dude, they've been suing on this for like years in federal court, and Rob's been giving me updates on this for years now, guys. Where, look, if you're actually following the letter of the Brady bill, I'm summarizing, but this is the way I understand it. Michigan is supposed to have been a NICS bypass for a CPL holder this whole entire time. It used to be marijuana was involved. Go back and watch my standalone video. So I'm not really asking you to opine on that particular case, but it's something that if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. I did like a thorough 25-minute video on this whole topic. So we get this huge win in Michigan. We're now, according to the federal government, like on their official ATF site, we were able to source through a friend of the channel right away the letter that came directly from the ATF and everything. We've got the receipts. It is what it is. If you have a CPL in Michigan or a license to purchase, as far as the federal government is concerned, that's a NICS check bypass. You fill out the 4473, you show them your credentials, they write down the information, and you can go home. Are you familiar with that new thing that happened?
Yeah, I am. And I mean, that's how it works in a lot of these various states, like my home state of Mississippi. You know, I had a permit. I would just walk in, plunk the permit down, and then not have to go through a background, not potentially get delayed or denied, and then just walk out with the gun, like without anything else. And so the ATF had revoked Michigan's permit waiver, but allowed what is it? They had two different kinds of permits in Michigan.
There's your concealed pistol license, and then now with new state laws that have passed, you have to get a license to purchase. If it's a handgun, it gets complicated, but there's licenses to purchase for the plebes, and then the idiots that pay money for a CPL like myself, you have a CPL.
So I understood it that they revoked the CPL but kept in place the license to purchase as a NICS waiver. And then they just rescinded that, I don't know, like less than a month ago.
Yes.
All the dates, like, I can't believe we're in June already, but
it's like 3 weeks ago is we reported on it here.
Yeah, things are happening really fast. And so they reversed their policy and said, no, actually, Michigan CPLs now you can use as a NICS waiver. So
again.
So theoretically, you should be able to walk into a gun store in Michigan with your CPL and bypass the background check because that permit shows that you're not a prohibited person.
Okay, so here's my quick question I wanted you to answer publicly because I called you about this. I was all like, ugh. Okay, so my LGS, it's called Super Match, guys. If you're ever in the Newport area, check them out. Southeastern Michigan. We're coming with your CPL there. That's a bypass there. A few of you guys here and there have come in, chiming in, saying you have an awesome gun shop that's willing to follow the rules and the official guidance of the ATF. However, man, I want to say it's about 90% of my viewers have been responding over the last few weeks saying nothing changed where they go. They're saying, no, we're not going to believe this letter from the ATF. We're just not going to abide by it. We're going to run your background check anyways. And I'm like, what the heck's wrong with this? How come this part of the guidance from the ATF, like it literally says in that same letter, part of it's mandatory. You must follow the guidance here and here. But then when it goes down and has a very specific, there's like only a couple of criteria in which the ATF says that they're supposed to still run a NICS check.
Yeah.
But the way it's working in real life is they're saying, oh, just because it's a day that ends in the letter Y or because I feel like it, I'm going to run your background check anyways.
Yeah.
Like, how is that?
Yeah. So the FFLs have a wide amount of discretion when they sell you a gun. As I understand it, the FFL can say, well, I know that you have a permit. I think your permit's fine. And I know I got this letter from the ATF and the ATF says your permit qualifies as a NICS waiver. I'm still going to run it anyway. And you say, why? And they're like, well, that's my discretion to. And they can literally do that just because. And I'll tell you another point that might not be important to you, but it's important to your FFL. The FFL is not going to get in trouble with the ATF by running that extra background check. Where the FFL is going to get in trouble is not running that background check if you're a prohibited person. And a lot of these FFLs got burned by Biden's zero tolerance policy by either failing to run a background check on like an out-of-state person coming over, like let's say your neighbor state, someone came over from Illinois or whatever, tried to buy a gun and they had a permit and the guy's like, oh, it's you have a permit and it's a waiver. And then the ATF comes in and says, no, your permit's a waiver, not their permit, right? It's like you can't transfer, you can't go across state lines and use the other state's permit. You have to use your state's permit. So the ATF's not going to ding that FFL for always running a background check. It will annoy their customers, though.
And then you can decide. Yes, no, I'm glad you gave that context. You can decide where you want to shop.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm glad you brought that side of it because, look, guys, I've got a couple FFL viewers that are big fans of the channel. Shout out to all of you guys, man. It's not that I'm trying to like bag on the FFL too much, because I understand you guys have gone through very tumultuous times under Biden and all this. But here's what I don't understand, and I'll try to be real brief because I know it's getting late for you, man. But this is the official. I'm just going to move you for 2 seconds, but you can see this. So I just wanted to focus on two parts. This part of this letter, this is the whole. This isn't the letter. I'm sorry. This is the Brady permit chart, and the letter references this sections of this verbatim. Please note, permits issued more than 5 years before the date of transfer may not be used, even if those permits remain valid. So this is something they're saying. This is the criteria. Now, right below it is where there's the whole FFLs are not required to accept a qualifying alternative permit in lieu of a NICS check, background check if the FFL has reason to believe that the permit is invalid, improperly issued, or otherwise does not meet the requirements. Okay. So here's what's hard for me to understand. So that whole sentence where it gives a couple criteria, like, okay, you don't have to accept it in lieu of a NICS check if you have these stated reasons. Well, if it can be for any reason or no reason at all, my first question would be, why would they list reasons? Now, to argue in the contrary, even if I'm wrong on that argument, I would come back and say, well, hold on a minute. If parts of this document are optional, then how do I pick and choose which parts? So if I can pick that this criteria is optional, would I, as an FFL, not be allowed to choose that this permits are only valid for 5 years? Wouldn't I be allowed to determine that's optional as well? So how is part of this optional? Part of it's not optional. There's criteria that are listed like they mean something, but apparently they don't. And it doesn't say anywhere in here which parts are actually optional and which parts they have to follow.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You know the law that said the delay, right? So if you go in and you get a delay in 3 business days, the FFL can transfer it to you anyway.
Yes.
They're not required to transfer it to you. They can transfer it to you. So it's just their discretion to do so. And you have some places, I think like Walmart's one of them, if you still have one that sells a gun, they just can, but they won't. So you have some FFLs that will allow you to take that firearm even if you don't have a proceed, like if you're delayed.
Yeah.
But again, they don't have to let you do it. So it just goes back to FFL discretion. And I'm just telling you, after having sued the ATF a whole lot of times, the ATF's not going to ding a FFL for running the background check. The ding is when you don't run the background check.
Yeah.
And like living through Biden's zero tolerance stuff, man, I don't want to say I don't blame the FFLs, but it's just one of those things. Like I don't blame the FFLs for playing it overly cautious and super safe.
Dude, I don't blame them in a way too, because I literally understand everything you said and I totally get it, but I still kind of blame them too, though. That's
I get it. I know.
I don't like irritating. It at all.
I know.
Because here's my thing. I'm like, dude, this is the ETF. These are the jackboots. And now, not my particular local FFL, but just say hypothetically, my local FFL, they're going to be more stringent than the jackbooted ATF. Something doesn't feel right here.
I know.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, you could say, well, I have a right to buy a gun, right? So you go into your FFL and then you say something that the FFL doesn't like. And he's like, I'm not selling you a gun. You're like, but I have a right. And it's like, I'm just not going to sell it to you.
Well, you know what that goes down to? And you're going to say, well, no, but I have a right. He's going to say, sue me. As our friend Ron just said, all roads end up leading back to court again.
Yeah. Golly. What a
all system. Right, man. Well, look, dude, I really appreciate. I had such a good time tonight. The time flew by, and we've gone even later than what I promised you I'd have you off by. So, did you have any last minute words you want to say real quick? Or?
Make sure you call your senators. If this Hearing Protection Act, Short Act, if being able to gut the NFA is important to you, make sure you call your senators because this is something that we will probably not see again. Like I don't know what's going to happen in the midterms, but typically they switch parties. And so this is the way to get it. Even if it only lasts for 2 years, I can buy a whole lot of suppressors in 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm thinking if we can get Section 3 passed, there's going to be a shortage on oil filters at my local Walmart, and I'm just going to do all kinds of cool stuff.
That's right. We'll change oil, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be changing the oil rigorously on all my vehicles.
Rigorously.
To celebrate the Hearing Protection Act.
Very quietly.
Yes. Yes. All right, cool, man. Well, make sure you guys follow. It's called @2A Law. There is a link to his channel down there in the description. I'm not joking. It's really good content. And man, I had a blast hanging out with you tonight.
Yeah, it was great. I'm down to do it whenever.
Thank you so much, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care.
All right, good night.
Good night.
Oh, that was cool, man. Like, I call him on the phone every now and again, and I feel bad because, like he said, he's always working. This is like, by the way, he's a super humble guy, but Steven's like probably one of the premier Second Amendment attorneys behind the scenes, like actually literally like doing litigation that matters. Some of them are small cases, some are very, very large cases, and sometimes I'll just call him just for a minute just to be like, dude, can you make this make sense for me? Because as we all know, this whole world's gone crazy. And I was like, we've had some pretty good conversations on the phone. So why don't you come on and talk? And hopefully you guys enjoyed us talking about stuff that's not only important, but basically two friends talking. We did get quite a few super chats and memberships tonight. I had set a goal of 10 of them. I don't know if I got quite the 10 to meet the goal officially, but I am in a fairly good mood tonight. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. And I will do a little bit of viewer Q&A. As StreamYard's sitting here showing me this low signal thing, I hope that you can still hear and see me properly. It sounds like there might be like a mostly peaceful protest going on out there right now. All of a sudden I heard a little, I don't know. I'm not sure. We were talking about improvised grenades and stuff earlier. Oh my gosh. I just literally got a spam email just now. I'm going to call it spam email, but it gave me this little alert. This is from United States Senator Gary Peters. Does anyone know who he is? If you live in Michigan, you might. It just said we must fight back against the Republicans' agenda with the budget bill. So trust me, when it comes to this Hearing Protection Act, there is a lot of pushback by the Dems right now. So don't just think since it got through the House that we can just coast and we can go on autopilot. Because first of all, and I saw the viewer that left a good comment earlier. I just didn't want to interrupt our conversation we were having, but he made something to the effect of, actually it was this guy right here, John Bednars. Dude, I totally hear you. Now, not his comment right here, which is a good comment, by the way. He had said something like, I don't know why anyone in Michigan would be rooting for this Hearing Protection Act. Well, that lives in Michigan or these other states, Colorado, there's a whole bunch of them. Yeah, I get exactly what you're saying, man, and it's tough. But here's where I've come to the conclusion I did. Even though I live in Michigan, and it would make the acquisition for many people or even most people in Michigan unlawful to buy a silencer, otherwise known as suppressor. You still, dude, this is a once in 100-year thing to repeal part of the NFA. Now, waiting on the courts could take forever. However, if you just do nothing, we're still going to have to sit there. And to me, it's like if you have to buy a tax stamp, that's not what the Second Amendment is. That's what literally the definition of being infringed. However, that's why it's very important, and I keep emphasizing this every time. The way the Hearing Protection Act passed in the United States House of Representatives, while it's getting us one step closer to the biggest legislative Second Amendment victory in 100 years. Look, we can't take anything away from that, but we need to get Section 3 of the HPA. It has to be added in on the Senate side. That's why that's so important, because no, dude, I don't want Pyrrhic victories, okay? I don't want to be stuck in the corner where I'm like, all right, okay. Do I root to take one for the team where suppressors become more unlawful in Michigan? More unlawful in Michigan, just think about this, and many other states, so that the rest of the states can have them become more lawful. If I was forced in that corner, that is actually the decision I would make, but I don't like that. That's like under duress, okay? That's with like a barrel pointed at me. You have, these are your only two options you have to pick. Jeez, I guess, but this sucks, but it shouldn't have to be that way. I'm tired of Pyrrhic victories where you win the battle at the expense of losing the whole war. I don't like that at all. We need to win battles that solidify our victory for the war. And look, we are in a culture war, period. There's people that hate America. There's people that want America to become America again. And then there's 90% of the NPCs in the middle who just don't even know what's going on and just don't even care anymore. And that's the way it's always been. There's always a small amount of people on both sides of the issue that are passionate. And we need to win the battles and ultimately win this culture war that we're in. Because look, politics has always been downstream from culture. If we can win this culture war, we can have America back. It's literally that simple. Now, how do we win the culture war? I didn't say that's going to be simple, but however that can possibly be done, and I hope it can, we win that, everything else is going to fall in place. It always has, and it always will. But that's the tough part. But yeah, that's why we need Section 3 of the Hearing Protection Act to pass, because this could be a huge victory for most states and a huge loss in other states. And this is crazy. Look, we have a Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. If anyone ever wonders why we've lost a lot of our freedoms over the years, don't wonder very much. It was written down long ago. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The fact that there is no well-regulated militia, and not how it was in the founding anyways. Hopefully it will be again, actually. But the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's why. And I know every single person, we are the militia. I know 10 people are typing that right now. Kind of, but kind of not, though. How many militias do you see out there mustering? How many do you see drilling on a regular basis? I mean, a bunch of dudes just running around willy-nilly with a gun isn't actually really a well-regulated militia. So we actually really don't have much of that, actually. And no, the National Guard's clearly not a militia. And here's what literally proves it. In the instance with these LA riots, I mean, mostly peaceful protests, right? I'm a fan of Trump federalizing them in this instance to come in and quell all this chaos, and most of you are. But that just proves, though, beyond any reasonable doubt, that we have no militia. The militia is supposed to be the check against the federal government. If you have, they say, well, the National Guard, the state guards, the state, that's the militias for each state. No, it's not. BS. I can't believe anyone still repeats that lie. Clearly, they're not a militia if they can be federalized and put under the commander-in-chief of the United States Armed Services. See, one of the worst fears of the Founding Fathers, it was like in their top 3 concerns, was that the United States would ever have a standing army in times of peace. Actually, the people's well-regulated militia, well-trained, drilled. There were ages, 15 to 45? I believe is the age, maybe 46. I don't have a script in front of me, but you get the gist, was compulsory militia service. Actually, some of the very early gun laws weren't gun control laws so much as you had to get your gun inspected every year to make sure that it was in good working order. Not inspected so they could keep track of it to take it. Nothing like that. Not so it could have more locks and stuff on it. No. To make sure your gun was in good working order so that you could take up your gun and fight. That's what this country was literally founded on. So, look, if you're subject to the UCMJ, like Mateo just said, okay, and they are a uniformed military, and the president can call them up under his command, that's not a militia. It's literally not. And look, we the people have the capability of being a militia. That's true. Because a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. That's the why, right? That's what we want. We want to be free. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So just the whole concept of all of this is like, well, yeah, yet here we are. But there was a time, though. There was a time, several times in this country. You look at what was called the Civil War, I alluded to a little bit earlier. You know, it depends where you lived at the time and depends how you look at things now. Some would call it the War of Northern Aggression. Some would call it the War of Southern Rebellion. Yeah. And whatever perspective you have or had at that time, here's the crazy part. While it was going on, nobody was calling it a civil war. If you remember one of the battles, the first battle at Bull Run, people were picnicking on the side of a hill. Oh, yeah. And there were like gunshots going off overhead. And they didn't even know there was a war. And at that point in time, a lot of people were already dying. A lot of people just have no idea what's going on right now. And here's the crazy part. It's usually in history, with hindsight being 2020, it takes till you get there. You have to like get to the future before you can even name what the past is. And as long as we're still working within this system, that's what you do. You call your senator. You called your representatives before. The people actually made more of a voice, and their voices were heard on this Second Amendment issue more than they have been in a very, very long time, actually. For the first time in like 100 years. Part of the NFA did get repealed in the People's House of Representatives. Just think about that. Now we're to the upper chamber. As the founding fathers said, the United States Senate, which would be composed of better men. Oh, yeah. See, you have to remember, the United States, this isn't the way it works anymore at all, because, well, depends how you want to look at it, but we really kind of lost our country a long time ago. Some would say during the Civil War, some people would say the early 1900s, but it wasn't always this way. Here's how it was supposed to work with your two chambers of Congress. The lower chamber was the People's House. That's why you'd have 435 United States House of Representatives. They were in theory supposed to be closer and living among their peers, where they understood what it meant to live like in their local district, and where people could actually talk to them and have input and be represented, because we're supposed to be a representative republic. As Ben Franklin said, we're a republic if we can keep it, if you can keep it. So that's the People's House. That's supposed to be to represent the people. And then the Senate, the upper chamber, there would be 2 from each state. Now there's 100. There were far less states originally. But the Senate would be there to represent in Washington, D.C., the interests of the states. See, people weren't supposed to directly vote in a democratic way. You hear democratic, oh, our democracy, our democracy. That's what all the conservative talking heads say too. And that's why I'm like, the hell with all these labels and political parties anymore. Because half these conservatives, they still have no clue what the heck's going on with any of this, actually. If you think about it, actually, they have no clue. Our democracy, no. A democracy is 2 wolves voting against 1 sheep on what's for dinner. And you always know how that vote's going to turn out. It really sucks to be the sheep. But a republic is that well-armed lamb contesting that vote. Now, originally your state legislature was supposed to vote to elect your United States senators. Oh, I'm being serious. Go back and look it up. People are like, what do you mean? Yeah, no, that's literally how that was supposed to work. That made it where your state legislature, your state representatives, state senators had a lot more power and were a lot more important. And the problem is we've already accepted that, like, dude, if it wasn't for the Electoral College, this country would be screwed because it would be mob rule. That's what democracy is. But we have this direct democracy in our states. We're 10 million people in Michigan. Just get to vote, just a free-for-all. They found illegals voting in Michigan. There was one that was a Chinese citizen. Do you remember all this? The Chinese are coming in. He voted, this and that, went to the U of M. I mean, this stuff's crazy. There's a lot more that we'll probably never know about. But here we are. The United States Senate, elected by mob rule in each state, where the masses just get to push over and trample on the rights of everybody else. And that's where the Hearing Protection Act sits in the throes of. Now, it's Republican controlled. What's that mean? Well, if it was Democrat controlled, we'd have 0 chance. Okay, so that's good news. It's less worse because it's Republican controlled. I will say that right now. It's less worse. But I can't say it's good until it happens, because we've seen lots of Republicans vote for gun control. Look at Senator John Cornyn of Texas, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. dude, like the senator from Louisiana, all voted for the biggest gun control package that we've had in decades in this country, the so-called Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. We've watched it happen right away, just in real recent times here. They got it passed through right away. They actually broke the filibuster. They passed gun control. Republicans did, with the help of every Democrat, obviously. Not even through budget reconciliation, because they got so many Republicans to jump on board. It's literally crazy. Both senators at that time from West Virginia, the Republican and the Democrat at that time. Now, we've had some elections since then, but dude, like, think about it. Dude, if Kentucky and South Carolina and West Virginia and Louisiana and Texas, if those aren't pro 2A states, then I don't know what the heck are. Now, you guys can all clack out your state you live in that might be more pro 2A, but you guys get my point, right? If those aren't pro 2A states, then what the heck is? But senators from all those states voted for major draconian gun control just a few years ago. So my hopes are high. They are. My hopes are high, but I'm not going to be the one that just sits there and says, I guarantee you, no matter what, that this Hearing Protection Act is going to pass with Section 3. I'm not going to guarantee you that. I'd say we have slim chances of it passing, but we do have a chance. So you still need to keep calling. You still need to keep fighting, like literally over this weekend, because this stuff's literally getting put in. We might find out the final verbiage tomorrow night. They're working over the weekend from what I understand. So when I say like tonight, I mean tonight. And shout out to everyone that watches on replay, because it might be too late by then to call your senator on this. Actually, I don't know. The Short Act needs to be added as well. They need to pass the Hearing Protection Act Section 2 that the House passed, add Section 3 of the HPA, and add the Short Act. And don't consider it a done deal just because Republicans are in the majority. That's the major point that I wanted to bring up tonight. Okay, let's see here. I told you guys I would answer questions if you have them. Now, here's the thing, Richard Denny, and we should have said this publicly tonight. I kind of took it for granted because I've come to know Stambo pretty well. Yeah, man, he can't stand lawyers for the most part, right? Like, there's some here and there that are good, actually. It's like, look, dude, we don't like Supreme Court justices and judges for the most part when it comes to the 2A. But we like Clarence Thomas, right? We probably like Reed O'Connor out of the Northern District of Texas, right? And others. So yeah, man, this is, yes. My friend Stambo, he does not care for lawyers for the most part. And he will be the very first to tell you that. But that's why it's good that there's a few good ones out there, you know? Let me see if I had any other questions here. Vince, what's happening, Vince Metzger? How you doing? He says, I'm uninterested in the version of the HPA that treats suppressors like firearms. Ditching the $200 tax is insufficient. They must be treated no differently than any other firearms parts like handguards. I agree. Dude, to me, anything that, dude, 100% of all gun control is unconstitutional. Obviously. Only obvious to stupid people like all of us. No, actually, we're probably like way smarter. All of these so-called smart people wearing all these robes everywhere, these are the stupid people. But you know what I mean? They consider us to be the whatevers. The less than desirables, right? Yeah. No, I hear you, dude. Yeah, here we are. I guess first you have to remove it from the NFA. And then you can try to remove it from the GCA, and then you can whatever. But who knows? The left might just do a boogie right now, a boogaloo or whatever they call it. It might just take all of us out in the meantime. I don't know. It's like sometimes the problem with all of us, and we're too thoughtful of people, and I go in circles the way I think about stuff. And I'm not trying to lump you in with me, Vince, but I'll tell you the problem with me and some of my friends is we sit there and it's like, well, first we have to do this, then we have to do that. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of all this strategy. Just screw it. You know, if you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. Just get rid of all of it. And if they don't, whatever, who even cares anymore? Because that's what the left does. They're going to go through and do whatever to this country through this weekend. I don't know how bad it's going to be or not. I hope it's not bad, but they're just going to do whatever. They don't like it. They just burn it down. They don't even care. And while there's something like totally repulsive by that, there is something like kind of liberating about that too. And while I hate what they do with every bone in my body, part of me is almost a little jealous, if you know what I'm saying. Now, I'm not calling for anything like that, and I don't want that. I don't do that. But there's just a certain part. I think you guys know what I'm getting at. I don't think I need to explain it, but a little bit of it, I'm almost just a little jealous. It's like these guys just say screw it, and they just do whatever. Like, I don't know what would happen. I have no idea what would happen if everyone just said, screw all gun control. And 80 million people just took to the streets and marched through them with their arms bared. What would happen? I have no idea. The world's never even seen anything like that. It'd be more people than all the ground troop armies of all of the United States allies put together. I have no idea. I have no idea what would happen, but it'd be interesting. I'll tell you that much. It'd be very interesting. Fluffy 10mm Jeep guy says, 2A EDU, are you going to AIM Day in Ohio in August? I have no idea, man. I didn't know it existed and was not invited to it, so I don't know. If you have more information, let me know. What's happening, Lori DeVries? How you doing? I mean, I'd like to go down to Ohio. I just don't know exactly what you're talking about. Donovan Gomez, what's happening, man? And thank you for the super chat. When is House Bill 4586 open for public comment? 4586. Which one is that? Sounds like a Michigan House bill, right? 4586. I'm going to type this out real quick just because. Okay. 4586. Jason Wolford's bill as the main sponsor. It's been referred to Committee on Judiciary. Well, look, here's the thing, and I'm going to end with this. Sarah Leitner's the chair of the Judiciary Committee, right? She's yet to offer a hearing on Representative Jim DeSantis' red flag repeal bills. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm yet to see any encouragement or anything whatsoever that leads me to believe that Committee Chair Sarah Leitner has any interest in hearing any pro-Second Amendment bills that actually have any sustenance, they'll actually repeal anything. Hey, I hope I'm wrong. And if she's watching this video or one of her friends or colleagues are, hey, I'm trying to be as patient as I can be, but I don't see the will of committee chairman Sarah Leitner is wanting to hear any meaningful Second Amendment bills where there can be a hearing and you can come and speak in public on it. And this bill you're talking about has to go in front of her committee. So if it's meaningful, in my opinion, that means there's less of a chance the Republican-controlled committee chair will bring it up. I mean, that was the honest truth, man, if you want to know. Now, you can call your reps about it right now. You can try to raise awareness, and that's what I want all of you to do with the committee chair herself or the people that sit on the committee. Yeah, we can try to get enough of a public movement where these bills can actually get heard so people can go testify. Yeah. I know that, look, it's called a split legislature right now in Michigan where the Dems control the Senate, the Republicans control the House. All I know is this. The Dems just passed 5 draconian gun control bills out of the Senate committee. There's equally powerful gun control repeal bills, powerful in a good way, that have been put forth by Michigan representatives, but the Republican-controlled committee chair that it seems like almost all of these keep getting shoved into either doesn't have the time, isn't aware, doesn't care. Maybe she doesn't like the Second Amendment. I have to throw this out there, and I'm saying maybe because I just don't know. Maybe she hates the Second Amendment, and maybe she's a gun grabber, And maybe her constituents should start asking her about that. Maybe the people of Michigan start needing to ask committee chairman Sarah Leitner, Michigan Representative Sarah Leitner, they need to ask her, Madam Chair, is there a reason you won't put forth meaningful gun control repeal bills in the Republican control committee? Is it because you don't think it matters? Is it because you didn't know about it? Is it because you don't care? Do you dislike the Second Amendment? Do you hate it outright? I'm not accusing her of any of those because when I went into her office to try to schedule a meeting to talk to her about it, I wrote down all my information and, hey, either she forgot the note, the wind blew it away, the dog ate it, or she doesn't care to talk to me or this channel. It's one of the three. I don't know. Needless to say, her nor her office got back to me. So I'm just sitting here like the rest of you, left to wonder. I don't know. I could come to conclusions. I'm trying to be patient. I'm trying to be fair. I don't know why technically, but you have to start guessing. You have to start guessing. Wait a minute. I wonder. Now look, I don't know. And there's an easy way that this could be settled real quick. They could schedule a hearing for Jim DeSantis' red flag repeal bills, for Jason Wolford's bill, for Mike Holdley's bill. Look, there's some good gun control repeal bills out there that have been submitted in Michigan. And this could get settled real quick. Just put up a fair hearing. Then we'll know. Then they'll testify. The chair will vote. The members of the committee will vote. They'll be on the record. We'll know who stands with us. We'll know who stands with the Second Amendment against. But when they won't give them committee hearings, when they won't do the hearing, this channel's reached out and tried to set up an appointment to talk to the chairman that either fell on deaf ears or was forgotten about, or they didn't want to, or the dog ate it. You don't see. Here's the thing, right? You don't know what you don't know. When you just go in there and you inquire and you never hear back, it's like, well, you guys see how it works? Say, here's the problem. Democrats suck all the time. Republicans suck almost all the time. That's my candid advice. I'm being serious. Democrats suck all the time. Republicans suck almost all the time. And that's about all I have to say about that. What's up, MC? How you doing, man? What's up, Mike McClune? YT Sparty? Oh, yeah, I've covered Senate Bill 111 and, well, red flag. I mean, we have a red flag law in Michigan right now. Of course, I've heard of this. The Michigan red flag bill, if you're a threat to yourself or others, intentionally or unintentionally, is actually how our red flag law reads in Michigan. Intentionally or unintentionally. Like I said before, if you could hurt yourself accidentally, that's grounds for being red flagged in Michigan. Well, I'm getting this low signal thing here. Hopefully you guys can hear me and see me. But the fact that I've been answering these questions and I thought going on a pretty good rant, and not one single chat has even been like a country mile or 1,000 miles from being germane on anything I'm saying, I have a feeling you guys are no longer hearing me anymore. So I am going to get off. If you can hear me, have a good weekend. Be safe out there. If you can hear me on replay, shout out and watch out, man. These so-called mostly peaceful protests, I have no idea. But I hope that they're going to be a little more peaceful than I'm afraid that they're going to. Good audio. Okay. Maybe the videos. It gives me this little thing up here that says like there's bad service for the stream, and I don't know. I'm basically talking about apples and the whole chat's talking about oranges. So I'm like, maybe they can't even hear me anymore. Evidently not very interested in what I have to say anymore. Would be a much better way to word it, but that's okay because I was getting off anyways. CNT Designs and Arms, member for 29 months. Wow, dude, that's a long time. Thank you so much for being such a long time channel supporter. And he says, how you been, my brother? Dude, I'm hanging in there. I'm doing all right. Living in the tyrannical state of Michigan in a Shout out to all of you down in the great state of Alabama and down south and way down south, and all of you that are up north and out east and out west, really, right? That should sum it up. But all of you be safe this weekend, and I appreciate you being a supporter, man, and just being around. Shout out to the C&T Designs and Arms channel. He's a good dude, and I will see you all again soon. All right. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.